All right. Hey, Mom. Okay, guys, I don't have a lot of time, so let's get through this really quickly. So today, well, first of all, I'm Abhi Aiyer. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I work at a company called Workpop.com, if you want to join our team. Interesting color choice, by the way. Goes really good with the GraphQL pink. And we're hiring, so that's cool. Last year, at this conference, I believe Danielle talked about GraphQL First development, and we outlined these 3 stages. Right? There's schema design, implementation, and then monitoring. But having taken all those wisdoms from that talk and applying it to my own company, I found out that there's it's a lot different. It actually looks like this. It's a lot more complicated than we think. And so I kind of want to go into these steps of a workflow and then I'll get into some tips on how to be productive. But everything in GraphQL starts with types. And so if you get that right, your whole time is going to be amazing. If you get the types right, then you can Codegen. Codegen is a big part of your workflow because if you're going to be supporting iOS and Android, you'd love to, Codegen all their queries, mutations, etc. So types and Codegen go together, and then you hit this review stage. With GraphQL First development, there's an assumption that everyone agrees on the types, but that's not true. People have their own opinions. And so you can see that this review stage goes back to types, and it's an infinite loop until people are really resolved in like all the things that they've built or the types that have been declared. After you do that, and after you have a set of types and a set of queries or mutations that you want to use, you're going to start mocking. And mocking is probably the key to productivity here. Mocking allows you to do a lot of interesting things without having dependencies between teams. So once you have the mocks done, you split it into pretty much 2 teams if you have the people for it. You go into the client implementations, React, Android, iOS. You can use Apollo, Relay. And on the server, there's plenty of server libraries that can help you with the GraphQL server. Once the 2 sides are done, you integrate and find all the bugs that you probably wrote, and then you ship and monitor it at the end. So types and Codegens, a good productivity tip is you should organize your types in a single repository. It really worked out for us. And then you can just write a bunch of scripts to do Codegen in that one repo. And Apollo Codegen is a great tool. It outputs a schema.json file that the Android and iOS apps use. Also Swift types and some Java models. And then review. I'll say this again. Make sure everyone agrees on the API before you build something. Because if you change it later, you're not going to have a good time. So what is mocking? What does mocking allow you to do? It allows you to develop features faster. You can iterate on your user interface independently from the back end. You can develop features in parallel, so 2 teams can work on the same thing at the same time. And for this to really work successfully, you need to be able to generate fake data. So I put 2 links here. If you want to use an actual fake proxy, the guys from APIs Guru, they have a GraphQL Faker. And if you want to just get a JavaScript library that generates fake data, you can use faker.js. What does a mock do? In essence, in GraphQL, mock is just something that intercepts the network interface and returns static data. That's all it does. So you can see the client is pretending it's assuming that it's going to make it to the GraphQL server, but this mock is standing in between it, and it's going to actually return all that stuff. Mocking on Android, I think today we could improve our in the community if we had standard libraries to do mocking across all the platforms. But right now in Android, we use HTTP client, OK HTTP, and then you just write an interceptor to intercept all HTTP requests that are coming from the device, and then you can return just a mock JSON object for your query. Same thing in iOS. We use Apollo, Android, and iOS, by the way. You just intercept everything based on the operations string. And then this is where I come in, mocking on the web. So we have Storybook, right? If you're a UI developer, Storybook. It now supports Angular too, props to the Storybook team, and Vue and all that. There's a Vue Apollo, React Apollo, and Angular Apollo. So you can actually get started in Storybook with all your mocks. So I built an apollo-storybook-decorator. It's on GitHub. It's really cool if you're using React, and I hope to support other frameworks in the future. But it allows you to build user faces in isolation. And that's the biggest key is you want to be able to mock all your data, build your components, and integrate it with the server. And Apollo Storybook Decorator allows you to do that. All you got to do is define your schema and mock resolvers, right? So here I'm creating a basic type definition for name, and I'm making a mock resolver. which in this case it uses the faker.js library to return a name. Then I add the storybook decorator to my app, which is pretty cool. Nothing more to say there. And then you just write a story. It's that simple. You write a storybook story. This is React, by the way. But if you look at this function, hello world, like this could be sent to production. And if the integration phase worked out for you, you don't have to write any more code. The same code that you put in your story, you can launch to production. And so I wish I could give a demo during Lightning Talk, but I can't. But just, this stuff works. And thanks. And if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter and Medium. And I worked with Nick Burke to do the React Apollo tutorial on how to GraphQL. So if anyone here is trying to learn, that's a good resource. I'm also the co-host with Johannes Schickling. Johannes, where are you? We have a podcast called GraphQL Radio. Hopefully a lot of you guys are listeners. And if you want to be on the show, hit me up. So that's it. Thanks.